Once, in the quiet village of Evershade, nestled between misty hills and ancient forests, lived a once prosperous family known as the Ravenswoods. At the head of the family was Aldrich Ravenswood, a merchant whose fleet of trading ships had long brought wealth and prestige to his household. His manor stood tall and proud, surrounded by lush gardens and bustling servants, a testament to generations of fortune. But fate, as it often does, can be cruel. Aldrich had wagered his entire fortune on one last fleet of ships laden with precious spices, silks, and rare artifacts from distant lands. It was to be the venture that would secure the Ravenswood name for decades to come. But storm clouds gathered both in the skies and in the whispers of fate. A violent tempest ravaged the sea, and Aldrich's fleet vanished beneath the waves, swallowed by the endless dark. Word spread fast in Evershade, the Ravenswoods were ruined. The village, once in awe of their grandeur, now murmured behind their backs, eyes filled with pity or scorn. Creditors came knocking, debts were called in with ruthless haste. Aldrich, a widower with 6 children, 3 sons and 3 daughters, found his world crumbling. Unable to pay his debts, Aldrich was forced to sell his family's grand possessions. The magnificent manor with its sprawling grounds, the polished carriages, the priceless jewels his late wife had cherished, all gone. One by one, the tokens of their former life were auctioned off until the Ravenswoods found themselves cramped into a small, dilapidated cottage on the village's edge. The hearth was cold, the walls thin, and the servants had all departed. Despite the tragedy, Aldrich remained determined. His heart was heavy but his spirit unbroken. He traveled tirelessly to neighboring towns and cities, seeking investors, partners, any chance to rebuild his shattered empire. The weight of responsibility rested heavily on his shoulders, but he bore it without complaint. Back at the cottage, his children faced a harsh new reality. The eldest sons, Gareth, the proud and hot-headed, and Lionel, quiet but entitled, and their sister, Isolde, all struggled to adapt to life without wealth. Their education, once filled with tutors and lavish lessons, had left them ill-prepared for the practical challenges before them. They spent days idling, resentful of the world that had taken their luxury away. The younger daughters, however, were different. Illyra, the middle child, possessed a gentle strength and quiet resolve, but it was the youngest, Miriel, who stood out most. Barely 19, Miriel was a bright light in the gloom. Unlike her siblings, she embraced the challenges ahead with a will to learn. She sought out villagers to teach her how to bake bread, mend clothes, tend the garden, and care for the chickens. Her sweet disposition and tireless work ethic slowly won the hearts of their neighbors, who had once viewed the Ravenswoods with suspicion. Miriel became the glue that held the family together, mopping floors while her brothers lounged, stitching torn garments while Isolde sulked in her chamber. She carried firewood, cooked meals, and managed the small household with quiet dignity. As months passed, the tension between the siblings grew. Gareth openly blamed Miriel for playing servant, while Lionel mocked her simple village ways. Only Illyra tried to mediate, though her efforts often fell on deaf ears. One chilly autumn evening, as Miriel was gathering water from the well, a village elder approached her with a gentle smile. "You have done well, child," he said. The village remembers your kindness. Miriel bowed her head, grateful for the rare praise. Meanwhile, Aldrich received a glimmer of hope. A messenger brought word that one of the lost ships had returned, battered but intact, with much of its precious cargo. The family buzzed with excitement, dreaming of reclaiming their fortunes. The older siblings dreamed of silken shoes, jeweled necklaces, and a return to their old lives of ease. Miriel, however, wished quietly for a single rose, the rarest flower, a symbol of hope and beauty that had never graced their cottage's meager garden. As Aldrich prepared for the journey to the port city to retrieve what was theirs, Miriel packed provisions with care and gave her father a heartfelt farewell. The village watched as the merchant rode off down the sun-dappled forest path, leaving behind a family divided but bound by uncertain hope. Yet, in the quiet corners of her heart, Miriel felt a shadow of unease. The winds whispered of trials yet to come, secrets buried beneath the waves, and a darkness that would test the very bonds of the Ravenswood family. This was only the beginning. The morning sun barely pierced the dense fog that wrapped around the village of Evershade as Aldrich Ravenswood set forth on his journey to the port city. The once proud merchant rode with a steady hand, but his heart carried a tumult of hope and anxiety. The weight of his family's survival pressed on every thought. Miriel stood silently by the cottage door long after her father disappeared into the misty road. She clutched the small bundle of herbs and bread she had packed for his journey, her delicate fingers trembling slightly. Though young, Miriel had learned to hide her fears behind a calm exterior, a shield she wore for the sake of her family. Inside the cramped cottage, tension simmered like a brewing storm. Gareth, the eldest son, paced restlessly. His sharp eyes darted toward the cracked window as if willing his father's swift return. "He's going to fail us," he spat, voice thick with bitterness. "That port city is a den of thieves and cheats. No one will help him." Isolde, their sister, scoffed from the worn wooden chair where she sat draped in a threadbare velvet shawl. "Maybe he's already lost what little hope we had. We should accept that this family's time is over." Lionel, silent until now, leaned against the hearth, his jaw clenched. "We can't just give up," he murmured, though the lack of conviction in his voice betrayed him. Illyra, the middle daughter, stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. "We must hold on for father, for Miriel, for all of us. Fighting amongst ourselves won't bring back what's lost." Miriel met Illyra's gaze and nodded. Together, they moved to prepare the meager dinner, their hands steady despite the heaviness in their hearts. Meanwhile, in the village, whispers stirred. A mysterious figure cloaked in midnight blue had been seen at the edge of the forest, watching the Ravenswood cottage from afar. No one knew his name, but the village children called him the Raven. His presence was a shadow cast over the fragile peace. As the days passed without news from Aldrich, the family's hope began to waver. Miriel's nights were plagued with restless dreams, visions of dark waves swallowing ships, and a rose wilting beneath a storm-blackened sky. One evening, as the wind howled outside, a knock echoed on the cottage door. Illyra opened it to find a weary traveler, his cloak damp and muddy. "I am Tomash," he said, voice rough but kind. I have traveled with your father. He sent me to check on you and bring a warning. Warning? Muriel asked, stepping forward. Tomasz nodded gravely. The port is not as safe as it seems. Those who envy your family's name have set traps. Aldrich has fallen into their snare. Panic surged through the cottage. Gareth clenched his fists. We must go to him. No, Muriel said firmly. Father asked me to keep the family safe. Tomasz looked at her with respect. He trusts you. That night, the family gathered around the dying fire, sharing Tomasz's tale of betrayal. A rival merchant guild, jealous of Aldrich's past success, conspired to seize the returned cargo. They had corrupted officials and hired thugs to ensure the wealth never left the docks. Determined not to let the Ravenswoods fall completely, Muriel resolved to act. She sought out the village elder, the wise woman known as Mara, who possessed knowledge of herbs, secrets, and old magic. Mara agreed to help, but warned, dark forces are at play. To protect your family, you must be brave beyond your years. Days turned into weeks. Muriel, with Mara's guidance, learned to craft potions that could heal, protect, and reveal hidden truths. Illyra secretly trained with the village blacksmith, learning to wield a sword. Gareth, restless and desperate, sought out allies in the town's shadowy corners, sometimes walking a dangerous line. Meanwhile, Aldrich struggled in the city's underbelly, trapped by debts and enemies. His spirit faltered, but thoughts of Muriel and his family gave him strength. He planned an escape, but time was running out. One fog-filled night, Muriel found a wilted rose in the garden, an impossible miracle. Clutching it tightly, she knew it was a sign. The struggle for the Ravenswood survival was only beginning, and the smallest spark of hope could ignite a fire that darkness could never extinguish. The village of Evershade had never seen a night as still as that one. The moon hung low, casting silver shadows over the crooked cottages and winding streets. But within the quiet calm, a storm of resolve brewed deep inside Muriel Ravenswood's heart. Clutching the fragile rose she had found a single bloom thriving against all odds, she felt the weight of destiny pressing down on her slender shoulders. This rose was no ordinary flower. Its petals shimmered with an ethereal glow, as if infused with ancient magic. It was a symbol, a message, and perhaps the key to saving her family. The next morning, with the dawn barely touching the horizon, Muriel sought out Mara, the village elder and keeper of old secrets. Mara's cottage, nestled among gnarled oaks at the forest's edge, was filled with herbs, bones, and strange symbols etched into the wooden walls. The air smelled of earth and time. Mara examined the rose carefully, her eyes narrowing. "This is the midnight rose," she whispered, her voice trembling with reverence. "It blooms only once every century, where magic still lingers strong. Its power can protect, but also demand great sacrifice." Muriel swallowed hard. "What must I do?" To wield its power, Mira explained, you must journey beneath the village to the forgotten catacombs where the roots of the forest entwine with the earth's ancient veins. There, you will find the Heart Stone, a relic of immense power. Only by awakening it can you hope to shield your family from the darkness gathering in the city. The thought of descending into the catacombs frightened Miriel, but she steeled herself. I will do it. That night, after a quiet supper with Illyra and Tomasz, who had taken to guarding the cottage with unwavering loyalty, Miriel prepared for her journey. She wrapped the midnight rose carefully in a cloth, took Mira's talisman, a pendant carved from black onyx, and stepped into the shroud of darkness. The path to the catacombs was hidden beneath a twisted oak in the heart of the forest. Miriel's footsteps were muffled by fallen leaves as she descended the ancient stone staircase, the air growing colder and heavy with the scent of damp earth. Flickering candlelight from the pendant guided her way through narrow tunnels lined with carvings of forgotten gods and old legends. Deeper and deeper she went, until the walls opened into a cavernous chamber where the heart stone lay, a pulsating crystal that radiated warmth and light in the gloom. But it was guarded. From the shadows emerged a figure, draped in a cloak of woven night, eyes glinting with sorrow and challenge. Who dares awaken the heart stone? The voice echoed, deep and resonant. I am Miriel Ravenswood, she declared, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. I seek to protect my family from ruin. The figure stepped forward, revealing herself as the guardian of the heart stone, a spirit bound to protect the relic from misuse. To claim its power, you must prove your worth. A test of heart, courage, and sacrifice awaits. Miriel nodded, prepared for whatever trials lay ahead. The cavern shifted around her, visions of her family's past, present, and possible futures unfolding like pages in a book. She saw Gareth's bitterness tearing them apart, Isolde's despair, Illyra's quiet strength, and Tomasz's steadfast loyalty. Most vividly, she saw herself standing alone against the darkness. The test was as much about forgiveness as strength. Miriel faced visions that forced her to confront her own fears and the fractured bonds with her siblings. She had to learn to trust, to lead, and to sacrifice her own safety for the family's survival. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Time was strange in the cavern. Finally, the guardian spoke, "You have passed. The Heartstone's power is yours to wield, but beware, the darkness you face is cunning. It will seek to corrupt your light." The crystal flared, bathing Miriel in radiant energy. She felt strength surge through her veins, clarity sharpening her mind and resolve. The journey back was swift, guided by the now glowing pendant. Back at the cottage, Miriel found the household tense. Gareth had returned from a secret meeting with shadowy figures in the town, his face etched with worry and anger. "They're coming," he hissed. "The merchants, the guild, they plan to take everything. Even the village itself." Illyra stood beside him, sword at her side, ready to defend. Tomasz readied a cache of weapons he had procured. Miriel stepped forward, glowing faintly with the Heartstone's power. "We have a chance," she said, voice calm and commanding. "Together, we can fight. But we must be united. For the first time, the siblings looked at one another not with resentment but with a spark of hope. The road ahead would be perilous, but the fight for the Ravenswood name and for Evershade was about to begin. The dawn broke with a pale, uncertain light over Evershade, casting long shadows from the skeletal trees that ringed the village. The Ravenswood cottage, once a symbol of decline, now thrummed with quiet purpose. Myriel's newfound strength from the heartstone was still settling in her bones, but the real test was only beginning. Inside the cottage, tension hung thick like fog. Gareth paced the worn floorboards, impatience and fury coiling inside him like a serpent. "They won't wait," he growled. "The guild's mercenaries are already moving through the forest. We need allies fast." Illyra, polishing her sword with steady hands, glanced toward Myriel. "We can't fight alone. The villagers are wary of us, but Myriel's kindness has softened their hearts. It's time we ask for their help." Myriel nodded. "I'll speak with Mira and the others. We need more than courage, we need strategy." Tomash, ever vigilant, unloaded a small cache of crude weapons. "I procured these from the blacksmith's secret stockpile. They won't win us a war, but they might save lives." As the sun climbed higher, Myriel set out to gather the villagers. Her voice, steady and clear, echoed through the town square. "Friends, neighbors, dark times are upon us. The Merchants Guild threatens our homes, our families. But united, we can stand against them." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The villagers looked to her with a mixture of hope and doubt. Old grudges ran deep. Many had resented the Ravenswood's former arrogance. But Myriel's genuine humility and tireless work had softened hardened hearts. Mira stepped forward, a fierce glint in her wise eyes. "I will lend my strength and knowledge. The old magic still flows here, and I will teach those who will listen." Others joined, the blacksmith with his strong arms, the hunters skilled with bow and blade, and even the quiet children who could run swift messages. Meanwhile, deep in the city, Aldrich Ravenswood was a shadow of his former self. His imprisonment by debts had been harsh. Locked in a debtor's cell, he clawed at the walls of despair. But news of Myriel's courage and the village's rising resistance reached him through whispered messages. It rekindled a flicker of hope. One night, a prison guard approached with an unexpected proposition. "A man wants to see you," he said gruffly. Aldrich's heart raced as a hooded stranger entered the cell, eyes sharp and calculating. "I am Lord Caraway, a merchant with interests aligned to yours," the man said smoothly. "I offer freedom, but at a price." The bargain was clear. Aldrich would aid Lord Caraway in reclaiming lost influence, but not without cost. It was a dangerous alliance, one that could either restore the Ravenswood name or doom it forever. Back in Evershade, preparations for defense intensified. The villagers trained in secret, learning to wield weapons and trust one another. Myriel and Illyra worked tirelessly, strengthening bonds with the people and inspiring hope. Yet, within the family, fractures remained. Garrett's impatience sometimes clashed with Illyra's caution, and Isolde's bitterness threatened to undo their fragile unity. Miriel found herself often mediating, drawing on the Heartstone's wisdom to keep peace. As night fell, a messenger arrived breathless with urgent news. The guild's mercenaries were advancing, moving under the cover of darkness toward Evershade. Miriel stood before the gathered defenders, her voice ringing with resolve. Tonight, we fight not just for ourselves but for the soul of this village. Stand strong, and let no shadow claim our home. The stars blinked down silently as the village braced for war. The storm had arrived. The night air was thick with anticipation and fear. Evershade's villagers, once simple folk, now transformed into reluctant warriors, gathered silently in the shadow of the ancient woods. Torches flickered, casting eerie glows on faces marked by determination and dread. At the heart of this uneasy alliance stood Miriel Ravenswood, her eyes shimmering with the lingering magic of the Heartstone. While preparations for defense were underway, Miriel sensed a growing unrest not just among her family but within the village itself. Whispers of betrayal and doubt rustled through the crowd like a sinister wind. Unbeknownst to many, a spy lurked in their midst. A young man named Joran, once a trusted apprentice of the village blacksmith, had been seduced by promises of gold and power from the merchant guild. Torn between loyalty to his home and the seductive allure of wealth, Joran played a dangerous game, feeding information to the enemy. In the Ravenswood cottage, tension simmered. Garrett's impatience boiled over one evening when he confronted Miriel. "You think your magic will save us? This is real life, not fairy tales." He spat, slamming a wooden chair against the wall. Illyra intervened, stepping between them. "We need each other. Fighting among ourselves will only make us weaker." But Garrett's frustration was palpable. "I'll do whatever it takes. Even if it means making deals with shadows." Miriel's gaze hardened. "Deals with shadows come with shadows' price." Meanwhile, in the darkened streets of the port city, Aldrich Ravenswood navigated the treacherous world of politics and power. Bound by his uneasy pact with Lord Caraway, Aldrich worked tirelessly to gather resources and allies to reclaim what was lost. Yet every step forward was shadowed by the knowledge that betrayal lurked close. Back in Evershade, the first strike came before dawn. The guild's mercenaries, cloaked in black and moving like ghosts, launched a surprise attack on the village's outskirts. The villagers fought fiercely, but the enemy's numbers and training overwhelmed many. Miriel, wielding the glowing power of the Heartstone, rallied the defenders. Her magic flared, creating barriers of light and healing wounds, turning the tide in pockets of the battle. The villagers' spirits soared, but the cost was high. Joran's betrayal was revealed when a group of mercenaries ambushed a supply caravan. Forewarned by Joran, the guild had set a trap. The caravan was decimated, and many villagers were captured or killed. Confronted by Illyra, Joran's eyes flickered with guilt and fear. "I did it for my family. They promised to protect them. Myriel's voice was cold yet sorrowful. Betrayal breaks more than trust, it shatters hope. The village mourned its losses but refused to yield. Myriel's leadership and the magic of the Heartstone became a beacon in the darkness, uniting the fractured family and their allies. As the battle for Evershade raged, Aldrich made a bold decision. He would return to the village, risking everything to stand beside his children and face the growing storm. But he was unaware that Lord Caraway had other plans that could either save or doom the Ravenswood legacy forever. The village of Evershade lay scarred in the wake of the mercenaries' assault. Ash and blood stained the fields where children once played, and the air was thick with sorrow and resolve. Yet amid the ruins, a flicker of defiance burned fiercely. Myriel Ravenswood stood atop the cottage's weathered porch, gazing out toward the dark forest edge where the enemy had vanished like shadows at dawn. Her heart weighed heavy, but the power of the Heartstone pulsed through her veins, a steady rhythm of strength and hope. Inside the cottage, a council convened. The family, fractured but unyielding, sat around a rough-hewn table stained with ink and candle wax. Garrett's gaze was fierce, yet tempered by recent losses. Illyra's sword lay across her lap, a silent promise of protection. Isolde, still cloaked in her bitterness, seemed quieter now, a shadow of reflection in her eyes. Tomash, battle-worn and stoic, broke the heavy silence. The guild's grip tightens. Lord Caraway is not to be underestimated. He commands forces beyond simple mercenaries. If we are to survive, we must find new allies and fast. Myriel nodded. There is a way. Mira spoke of the ancient pacts made long ago between Evershade and the forest spirits. If we can rekindle that bond, the forest itself may rise to our defense. Gareth scoffed. Spirits and pacts. Magic isn't enough. We need steel and strategy. Illyra countered softly, and we need Myriel's light. We need both. The conversation was interrupted by a sudden knock. At the door stood Joran, the village trader, pale and desperate. I must make amends, he whispered. There's a way to stop Caraway, but I need your trust. Myriel's gaze was unwavering. Trust is earned, Joran. Speak. Joran revealed a secret passage beneath the village, an ancient network of tunnels long forgotten by all but the oldest villagers. The tunnels led directly beneath Caraway's stronghold in the city. This could give us the advantage, Myriel said. But the risk is great. We will need a small, skilled team. A plan took shape. Myriel, Illyra, Gareth, Tomash, and Joran would lead a covert strike through the tunnels to disrupt Caraway's operations. It was dangerous, but the only hope to turn the tide. Meanwhile, Aldrich Ravenswood's return to Evershade was met with mixed emotions. His children welcomed him, yet old wounds remained. Garrett's pride bristled at Aldrich's presence, while Myriel saw the flicker of regret in her father's eyes. At night, Aldrich confided in Myriel. I have made mistakes, child. Deals with men like Caraway weigh heavily. But I will do whatever it takes to protect you all. Miriel grasped his hand. We are stronger together. The night before the mission, the village gathered for a quiet vigil. Muro led the villagers in an ancient chant, calling upon the forest spirits. The wind stirred the trees as if answering their plea. In the tunnels beneath the city, the team moved silently, shadows among shadows. Their hearts pounded with fear and determination. Every step brought them closer to Caraway's secrets and the dangers that awaited. As they navigated the labyrinth, whispers echoed ghosts of the past and warnings of what was to come. The team faced traps, illusions, and the ever-present threat of discovery. Finally, they reached the heart of the stronghold, a chamber filled with stolen treasures and ledgers detailing Caraway's schemes. Miriel's magic flared, disabling wards and shielding them from harm. But just as victory seemed within reach, the chamber doors slammed open. Caraway himself stood there, flanked by his most loyal guards, a cruel smile twisting his lips. So, the ravens would send children to play in my domain, he sneered. Foolish and brave. Let's see how long you last. The battle erupted, steel clashing, spells sparking, desperation fueling every strike. Amid the chaos, Miriel locked eyes with Caraway, the heartstone glowing fiercely against his dark power. The fight for the Ravenswood legacy had truly begun. The clash of steel and crackle of magic echoed fiercely within Caraway's stronghold, the once silent chamber now alive with desperate combat. Miriel's heartstone flared, its radiant light cutting through the shadows like a beacon of hope. Around her, Illyra parried the brutal strikes of Caraway's guards, while Gareth fought with raw, reckless fury. Caraway's cold gaze locked on Miriel. You wield that cursed stone well, but power without control is a flame that burns its master. Miriel gritted her teeth, feeling the heartstone's energy pulse unevenly. She realized its power came at a cost. Each use drained her vitality, the glow fading slightly with every burst. Suddenly, from the depths of the chamber, a hidden mechanism clicked. The floor beneath Miriel's feet shifted, revealing a spiral staircase descending further into darkness. Caraway snarled, the Heartstone's true secret lies below. Come, if you dare. With no choice but to follow, Miriel and the remaining members of her team descended. The air grew colder, thicker with ancient magic. The walls were inscribed with glowing runes, telling stories of the Heartstone's origin, forged by a forgotten goddess to protect the balance between light and dark. As they reached the cavernous vault below, they found an altar upon which the Heartstone pulsed, connected to a web of crystalline roots stretching deep into the earth. A spectral figure emerged, the goddess herself, radiant yet sorrowful. The Heartstone is bound to sacrifice, she whispered. Its power can protect, but only if one is willing to give their heart in return. Miriel stepped forward, resolve shining in her eyes. I am ready. The goddess extended a hand, touching Miriel's chest. A surge of warmth and pain intertwined as Miriel felt her own life force weave with the Heartstone's magic. Visions of the past, future, and possible destinies flooded her mind, the Ravenswood's fall and rise, the village's fate hanging in the balance. Back above, Illyra and Garrett defended fiercely as Caraway's forces pressed. Joran, now redeemed, used his knowledge to sabotage enemy weapons, turning the tide. Suddenly, the chamber shook violently. The stronghold's foundations groaned under an unseen force. Caraway's expression twisted with fury and fear. "You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over." As Miriel ascended, glowing with renewed strength, she knew the fight for Evershade was just beginning and that the true power of the Heartstone was yet to be unveiled. As dawn crept over Evershade, the village stirred uneasily beneath a sky heavy with clouds. The aftermath of the battle had left scars deeper than wounds. Fear and uncertainty gnawed at the hearts of its people. Yet, amid this fragile calm, a new threat began to unfurl, one far more insidious than mere mercenaries. Miriel Ravenswood, now bearing the Heartstone's blessing, walked through the village square with a determined gaze. Her power was growing, but so was the darkness that sought to consume it. Whispers of an ancient cult, the Shadow Veil, reached her ears, a secret society intent on harnessing forbidden magic to seize control of Evershade and beyond. Gathering her closest allies Illyra, Garrett, Tamash, and the reformed Joran, Miriel convened in the dim light of the cottage's main room. The air was thick with tension as she spoke. The Shadow Veil is no mere legend. Their tendrils reach into the city's heart and even the village itself. We must uncover their plans before they plunge us into eternal night. A rapping at the door announced an unexpected visitor. A hooded figure entered, revealing herself as Seraphine, a former member of the cult who had defected. Her eyes glimmered with remorse and urgency. "I know their rights, their symbols, and their weaknesses," Seraphine said. "But they are planning a ritual, one that will bind the Heartstone's power to their will. If they succeed, all hope will be lost." The group's resolve hardened. Plans were made to intercept the cultists during their gathering, but first, they needed to protect the villagers, many of whom were unknowingly entangled in the cult's web. Meanwhile, tensions within the Ravenswood family simmered beneath the surface. Garrett's distrust of outsiders clashed with Miriel's cautious optimism about Seraphine's help. Isolde, still harboring bitterness, began to show signs of being drawn towards the cult's promises of power and revenge. As night fell, the cultists gathered in a hidden glade deep within the forest. Hooded figures chanted in an ancient tongue, weaving shadows into tangible forms. At their center, a dark altar pulsed with malevolent energy. Miriel and her allies moved stealthily through the woods, ready to confront the growing darkness. The fate of Evershade and the very essence of the Heartstone hung precariously in the balance. The moon was a cold witness as Miriel and her companions crept through the dense forest toward the cult's hidden glade. Every rustle of leaves, every distant howl, set nerves on edge. The fate of Evershade, the Heartstone, and their very souls rested on the coming confrontation. Seraphine led the way, her steps sure despite the shadows. "They are close," she whispered. "The ritual begins soon." We must act before the binding is complete. As the clearing emerged, the cultists were already gathered 20 figures cloaked in midnight, their voices rising in a haunting chant that twisted the very air. At the center lay the dark altar, upon which a pulsating black crystal absorbed their chants. Garrett's grip tightened on his sword. Ready yourselves. This won't be easy. Illyra drew her blade, its steel gleaming with a faint blue light. Tomash checked his crossbow, and Joran nocked an arrow, the tension in the air almost unbearable. Miriel stepped forward, the heartstone glowing softly at her chest. She raised her hands, summoning a shield of light that shimmered like a second skin. By the ancient pact, we command you to cease. Miriel's voice rang clear, cutting through the chanting. The cultists froze, heads turning slowly toward the intruders. Their leader, a tall figure with eyes like burning coal, stepped forward. You meddle in affairs beyond your understanding, child, he hissed. The Shadow Veil will claim the power you cherish. A fierce battle erupted. Spells collided with steel, light with shadow. Miriel's power surged as she fought to protect her friends and disrupt the ritual. But the cultists were cunning. One of them broke through the defense, casting a dark spell that ensnared Miriel's legs, dragging her toward the altar. Desperation ignited in Garrett's eyes as he charged, cutting down the assailant before they could complete their curse. With a cry, Miriel unleashed the Heartstone's full power, a blinding wave that shattered the dark crystal and scattered the cultists into the night. Panting and wounded, the group regrouped. Seraphine looked at Miriel with tears. You've broken the binding, but the Shadow Veil will return. Their thirst for power is endless. Back in Evershade, the villagers celebrated the victory but remained wary. The darkness was beaten back, but not banished. Within the Ravenswood family, wounds healed slowly. Isolde, shaken by the night's horrors, began to question her own choices. Gareth and Miriel found common ground, forging a bond forged in battle and mutual respect. Aldrich, newly returned, prepared to fortify the village and train its people, aware that the road ahead would demand sacrifices beyond anything they had faced. As dawn painted the sky with hues of gold and crimson, Miriel looked toward the horizon, her heart heavy but resolute. The war for Evershade's soul was far from over. The village of Evershade awakened under a sky streaked with fiery dawn hues, yet the air remained thick with the echoes of the night's battle. Though the Shadow Veil's immediate threat had been quelled, an ominous silence settled over the land, a calm before a storm far greater than any before. Within the Ravenswood cottage, plans were underway. Aldrich, now firmly at the helm of his family once more, gathered his children and closest allies around the worn table that had witnessed so many hard-fought decisions. His voice was steady, but carried the weight of hard-earned wisdom. The Shadow Veil's defeat was but a chapter in the story. Their hunger for power is insatiable, and their reach extends beyond the forest and city. We must prepare, not just to defend, but to strike at the heart of their darkness. Miriel, her connection to the Heartstone deepening, shared visions she had seen during moments of quiet meditation, visions of ancient ruins buried beneath the earth, places where the balance between light and dark was once forged and sealed. These ruins, she believed, held secrets vital to defeating the cult's growing influence. Illyra sharpened her blade with focused precision. If these ruins hold the key, we must find them before the Shadow Veil does. We cannot allow their darkness to spread unchecked. Gareth, tempered by recent hardships, nodded. The village will stand with us, but we'll need to rally support beyond these borders. Allies from the city, and even those who've long shunned the Ravenswoods. Joran, now fully redeemed, volunteered to act as a scout and emissary, promising to navigate the dangerous streets and hidden passages of the city to seek aid. As preparations unfolded, a new visitor arrived in Evershade under the cover of twilight, a mysterious figure cloaked in silks of deep violet, bearing an intricate staff tipped with a crystal that shimmered like liquid night. She introduced herself as Lysandra, a sorceress with knowledge of the ancient magics and a past intertwined with both the cult and the secret ruins. Her presence was met with suspicion, especially from Gareth, whose mistrust was hard-earned. But Miriel, sensing the sincerity in Lysandra's eyes, allowed her to speak. The Shadow Veil's power grows because they tap into the primal forces of the earth, Lysandra explained. To confront them, we must reclaim the lost magic of the ruins, magic that predates even the Heartstone. Under Lysandra's guidance, the Ravenswoods and their allies began to prepare for the journey into the unknown. They forged new weapons, studied forgotten spells, and trained tirelessly. The village, once fractured, now stood united, bound by a cause greater than any one person. On the eve of their departure, Miriel walked the village paths, her thoughts heavy. Faces of friends, family, and fallen comrades flashed through her mind. The journey ahead was fraught with peril, but it was a path they had to walk. At the edge of the forest, beneath a canopy of stars, the group assembled, each carrying hopes, fears, and a fierce determination. Miriel clutched the Heartstone close, feeling its steady pulse synchronize with her own heartbeat. As they stepped into the shadowed woods, the wind whispered ancient secrets, and the earth seemed to tremble with anticipation. The forest grew denser as Miriel and her companions pressed onward, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient secrets. Each step deeper into the wilderness felt like a descent into a world forgotten by time, where shadows clung to the gnarled trees and whispers of old magic stirred the leaves. Lysandra led the way, her staff glowing faintly with an ethereal light, illuminating symbols carved into stones and trees, markers left by the ancients to guide worthy travelers. We approach the ruins of forgotten light, she said softly, her voice tinged with reverence. Here, the balance between darkness and light was first sealed. As they neared the ruins, strange phenomena began to manifest. Miriel's Heartstone pulsed erratically, reacting to the ancient energies that suffused the place. The ground hummed beneath their feet, and spectral figures flickered at the edge of their vision, remnants of those who had protected the ruins long ago. The group entered a vast stone courtyard, dominated by towering pillars entwined with luminescent vines. At the center stood a colossal gate, inscribed with runes that shimmered with forgotten power. But the gate was sealed, guarded by trials that tested the courage, wisdom, and unity of those who dared seek entry. Gareth stepped forward, gripping his sword. "We face these trials together," he declared, a newfound respect for his sister Miriel and the others evident in his tone. The first trial was one of courage manifesting as illusions drawn from their deepest fears. Miriel confronted a vision of the village consumed by shadow, her family broken and lost. She felt despair claw at her heart but steeled herself with the knowledge that her strength came from love and hope. Next came the trial of wisdom, a puzzle etched into the gate's surface. Illyra and Lysandra worked in tandem, deciphering cryptic symbols and ancient languages until the runes glowed warmly, signaling their success. Finally, the trial of unity challenged the group to overcome their lingering doubts and resentments. Old wounds surfaced: Gareth's bitterness toward their father, Isolde's jealousy, and Joran's guilt. Through honest words and forgiveness, the group mended fractured bonds, proving their strength lay in togetherness. With the trials past, the gate slowly creaked open, revealing a sanctum bathed in radiant light. At its center rested the prism of Dana crystal, said to amplify the Heartstone's power and banish darkness. But their triumph was short-lived. From the shadows emerged the cult's leaders, more numerous and formidable than ever. A fierce battle erupted within the sanctum, magic and steel clashing amid bursts of blinding light and creeping shadow. Miriel, drawing upon the prism and Heartstone, unleashed a surge of purifying energy that pushed back the cultists. Yet, amidst the chaos, Lysandra revealed her true intent: a secret pact with the Shadow Veil, a betrayal that shattered the group's trust. As Lysandra struck at Miriel, the battle turned dire. But the strength of the Ravenswoods and their unity proved stronger than deceit. Gareth and Illyra intercepted Lysandra's blow, while Miriel called upon the deepest reserves of the Heartstone's power. With a final, blinding flash, the cult was driven back, the sanctum sealed once more. Exhausted but victorious, the group emerged from the ruins forever changed. The journey had revealed not only ancient magic but the true power of family and forgiveness. Yet the war was far from over. Shadows still lingered, and the echoes of betrayal would resonate through the days to come. The first light of dawn broke softly over Evershade, casting golden hues across the quiet village. The air was crisp, tinged with the scent of fresh earth and new beginnings. But beneath the serene morning lay the weight of trials endured and sacrifices made, a legacy forged in fire, shadow, and unwavering hope. Miriel Ravenswood stood upon a hill overlooking her home, the Heartstone resting gently against her chest, its steady pulse a reminder of the journey that had brought them here. The prism of dawn's light intertwined with its power, illuminating not just the land before her, but the path forward. Behind her, the Ravenswood family and their allies gathered, the village now united in strength and spirit. Gareth's fierce determination had softened into a protective resolve, Illyra's courage was tempered with wisdom, and even Isolde's bitterness had given way to quiet purpose. Tomash and Joran, once strangers and foes, had become trusted comrades. Together, they had faced darkness unimaginable and emerged stronger. The battle with the Shadow Veil had left scars, but it had also revealed truths. The darkness that threatened Evershade was not merely external, it had seeded doubt and fear within hearts. It was love, forgiveness, and unity that had turned the tide. In the heart of the village square, Muriel addressed the gathered crowd. We stand here not as those who fell, but as those who rose. Our story is not just of loss, but of courage. The Heartstone's light is a beacon not just of magic, but of hope. Together, we rebuild not just our homes, but our lives. Aldrich Ravenswood stepped forward, his eyes moist with pride. I once believed power was in wealth and might. But true strength lies in the bonds we forge, the love we share, and the sacrifices we make for each other. Mura, the wise elder, smiled gently. The ancient magic flows in all of us, in our kindness and courage. Evershade's future is bright because of your hearts. The village erupted in cheers and songs, a celebration of survival and renewal. Children ran freely once more, laughter echoing through the streets. The gardens bloomed, tended by hands both old and young, a symbol of life's enduring resilience. Yet Muriel knew their journey was not over. The world beyond Evershade held mysteries and shadows yet to be faced. But she felt ready, surrounded by family, friends, and a village reborn. As the sun climbed higher, Muriel lifted the Heartstone to the sky. Its light burst forth, weaving through the trees and hills a promise of protection and peace. The Ravenswood legacy was no longer one of lost fortune, but of unbreakable spirit and boundless hope. Title: The Ravenswood Legacy, A Tale of Light and Shadow. Description: In the quiet village of Evershade, the once prosperous Ravenswood family faces ruin when their fortune is lost to the unforgiving sea. As darkness gathers in the form of a secret cult known as the Shadow Veil, young Muriel Ravenswood discovers the ancient power of the Heartstone, a mystical relic tied to her family's fate. Together with her siblings and allies, she must navigate betrayal, magic, and war to protect her village and restore her family's honor. This epic fantasy tale weaves themes of courage, unity, sacrifice, and the enduring power of hope against the encroaching shadows. Journey through trials and mysteries, where the battle for light is also a battle for the heart.